Alrighty, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Ball Knower podcast team preview series. I'm your host as always, David Miller, and I'm sorry you can't see me today, but I threw my back out this morning and I physically cannot sit in my usual setup, so I'm currently laying in bed trying to record this. But either way, we're gonna keep trucking. We're gonna get through this. We're still gonna record this podcast because I already made these guys reschedule once, and I'm not gonna do it again. So speaking of which, I guess I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves. Just kind of take whatever order you guys want. I guess since Noah's muted, AJ, you can start us off here.
I'm AJ, just Raider fan. I have a little TikTok account with like 40 followers, AJ the Ball Knower.
And I'm Noah. I co-host the HarvesterSports podcast with one of my buddies, and I am a born and raised Raiders fan.
Awesome. Love to hear it. And if it wasn't apparent by AJ's profile picture or Noah's hat, we're going to be talking about the Raiders today. So I think the best place to start here is probably talk about the Devante Adams trade, by far the biggest move this team made during the offseason. So just, I guess in general, how excited are you guys to have the best receiver in football?
Yeah, it's going to be unbelievable. And it's not like they don't have chemistry either. This isn't like a Antonio Brown situation where we've got someone that's talented, but kind of not quite right upstairs. But instead, we've got somebody that goes to call Derek. It's going to be a great connection to see again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's honestly like an unreal feeling, anytime I see something on Twitter about, the Derek Carr throwing to Devante, I'm like, man, we really have the best receiver in football. It's a crazy thing, man. I didn't think we would be here right now. I didn't think we were going to get him, but I was over the moon when we did.
Yeah, all the Raiders fans wanted this to happen for so long. Now I wake up every day, and every morning I have to remember and tell myself Devante Adams is a Raider. And every time I remember, it's still sweet every time.
Right. Now, I know it's a different regime, but I got to ask, do you guys think this kind of makes up for the Khalil Mack situation, losing him to Chicago?
I mean, I don't know. I miss Khalil, but it's not like we didn't get good stuff with those picks and stuff. Right. So I don't know. It is what it is. We've got good guys on the D line these days. So I'm not tripping about Khalil being in the division.
Right.
Yeah, the Khalil trade was heartbreaking, man. I had his jersey. He was like my favorite player on the team. It was brutal. I was having a bad time when he got traded to the Chargers too, but we got Max now. We got Chandler, so I'm all right without having him.
Yeah, when that trade first happened, I could not see a way that it was a good trade for us, but in the years since, whether it's just me lying to myself or not, I've rationalized it in my head. So
yeah.
Well, given what Mac did for Chicago, I'll die on the hill that the Raiders won that trade. I think Chicago absolutely screwed themselves by making that trade, which, granted, they got themselves out of my biggest issue with it, which was obviously the massive contract we had to give them. But that was a poor time, I think, to go all in for Chicago. And I loved Mac for the one great year in 2018 he gave us, but after that he fell off, got hurt, and wasn't quite himself. So I guess we all kind of get that little bit of love towards Khalil Mack, and I love that Devante Adams is now on the Raiders since we don't have to play him twice a year as a Bears fan. So, yeah, and seeing him with Derek Carr, you can just tell the chemistry and the brotherhood or whatever you want to call it, and the love is there. Unlike with Rodgers, who Lord knows nobody loves at this point. So I'm very happy Tay went to the Raiders. It feels like he finally went home in a way. And it's always good to see a player do that. Now, the other trade, I'm not going to call it a big trade, but the other trade you guys made, you sent Yannick Ngakoue for Rock Ya-Sin to the Colts. How do you guys feel about that move?
I think ultimately, whether that trade itself was great or not, it sort of paved the way for Chandler Jones. So I'm thinking Chandler Jones and Max Crosby are going to be a great. And I honestly haven't watched too much of Rock. I always pronounce it wrong every time I think, but Rock Ya-Sin, right? Yeah. I mean, I loved Yannick, but it's hard to argue with having Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on the line.
Yeah, definitely. I saw the Yannick trade before the Chandler signing, so I was like, oh man, what are we doing right now? But then it all started coming together, and it makes sense. He fills a need, probably going to be day one cornerback too. So he's got some potential. He's still young, and he's gotten better like every year. So I think he can be like a pretty serviceable starter at the very least.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with Rock's game either, if I'm being totally honest, but I did do just a little bit of brushing up right before I came on here. And he seems like a guy that, kind of like AJ said, he's young. He's got a little bit of potential. You can see the vision with him. He's kind of up and down, and he's had some splash plays. He's good in zone coverage, and he's a pretty solid athlete and a willing run defender. So for what it's worth, especially considering you got Chandler Jones to replace Yannick Ngakoue, I think it was a fine trade for the Raiders. Yeah. I guess it's kind of the next place we can go. How do you guys feel about the Chandler Jones signing? I'm sure that's another thing you're pretty pumped about.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be you've got one guy that's been a veteran force to be reckoned with as a DN for the past quite a few years now. And then you've got Max, who's an up and comer. It's sort of a match made in heaven where you've got the veteran and then the young all-star. So
yeah, he's been around for a while. He's well respected and he knows the system. So I'm really looking forward to that, and gives a lot of the defensive guys like a guy they can like look up to, and defensive linemen model the game after him a little bit. Good mentor, and then just really good player still.
Yeah, and Chandler even said that like that was if not the number one reason, one of the biggest reasons he came to the Raiders is he wanted to play with Max, which is love to hear that from a team chemistry perspective. Even though last year, I think we were up there as one of the teams that like led the league in QB pressures. So I didn't really think that that our ends was like something that we needed to improve on. But then we signed Chandler Jones, and it's like, oh no, it could get better. So,
well, yeah, I see where you're coming from there, obviously. But when you see everything else the AFC West did, if you can get better in any position whatsoever, and they saw their opportunity and took it, and you got to love to see that, because that was kind of the big thing with the Raiders. I was very confused what their direction was going to be this offseason. Once we saw the Chargers start to make moves and we saw the Broncos trade for Russell Wilson, it was like, okay, well, the Raiders, as much as I love Derek Carr, now have the worst quarterback in the division coming off whatever we want to call last year, up top wise, talking about the coaching and the front office and whatnot. So I was very confused what their direction was going to be, but it's good to see that they just said fuck it and went all in. Like, I really hope the Raiders can shock some people, and I think they're at least the third best team in this division right now. I think they're a lot better than Denver. I'm not very high on Denver. So I guess the next place – oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, yeah, I think it's interesting that I've been looking at, like, the sports books predictions for what people think, like, who's going to win the division and stuff. I think we're consistently either the fourth or the third, even though we – came in second last year and then signed Devante Adams. So I don't really know. I get that the other teams got better as well, but I don't know. It's not like we certainly didn't fall off. I'd say we got exponentially better as well.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I guess the next place we can go from there, talk about this new coaching staff, obviously with Josh McDaniels leading the way as the new head coach. You had Mick Lombardi, I was calling him Vic Lombardi, and Patrick Graham coming over. How do you guys feel about the three main coaching hires you guys made?
I'm really excited to see the McDaniels system. I think it should work well for one within the division, because he tends to. And you can tell even with like all these little signings, I feel like there was a while there where every day we were signing some player that I had never heard of, but played for the Patriots during the time that McDaniels was there. And so it seems like he's got his guys and knows what he wants to do stylistically. And also I think his style is good for facing off against guys like Khalil Mack and all these other crazy good defensive lines in the division. I think he's quick thinking and can get the ball out quick, which is something that we're going to need.
Yeah, for McDaniels, he had a stint with Denver that didn't go too well, but I feel like everyone had like this like skewed view of him. Like I think he's gonna be pretty good. Like I wasn't happy about it when it was first announced, but as time's gone on, he's been around for a long time, and with the structure of the offense, he's got the dominant outside receiver, slot guy, receiving tight end, and he worked with a bunch of those guys, in New England throughout the years, whether it was Randy Moss, Gronk, Wes Welker, all those guys. So I'm really excited to see what he can do, especially in the red zone, because we've been so bad in the red zone. We couldn't score touchdowns last year, and the Patriots did. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to McDaniels being a head coach, AJ mentioned his stint in Denver that people weren't too impressed about. I feel like everyone forgets that his quarterback was Tim Tebow. Like, we're talking Tim Tebow versus Derek Carr here in terms of who's leading your offense, and I think everyone can agree there's a massive gap between those two individuals. And we saw what McDaniels was able to do last year with Mac Jones, who looked impressive, but again, isn't what Derek Carr is. And he didn't have the weapons. He didn't have the running game that he has now in LA. And then obviously you have some of the defensive pieces you can get excited about. I am really excited to see what McDaniels is going to be able to do with this offense. My only concern is probably Josh Jacobs within his scheme. Like, Josh Jacobs is a very good running back, but he's not that heavy power, straight up the middle gap type of runner. He's more of a zone runner. So I'm curious to see how that's going to adapt. I mean, maybe he can adjust to it. I don't think that's the hardest thing in the world to do for a running back of his caliber. But you look at the draft, and they drafted Zamir White, who's like the definition of what they're looking for, compares very similarly to Damian Harris, who was an absolute stud for the Patriots last year. So I'm interested to see how that will pan out. But in terms of the pass game, I don't think there will be any issues. And then they're going to have to find ways to work around the offensive line, which we can talk about here in a little bit. And then, of course, I got to give McDaniels credit because he uses a fullback. And like any coach that uses a fullback is just an incredible individual. And he's got Jakob Johnson, who is one of the best fullbacks in football. So it'll definitely be exciting to see what they can do on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you mentioned Jacobs. I will be really interested to see. But because when I think about like previewing the offense for this year, my thoughts all go to like what's the pass game. But I'm really interested to see how he incorporates Josh Jacobs and all of our running backs. You've got like a ton of running backs on the roster at the moment. But that was one of my pet peeves from years past that drives me absolutely bonkers is when it feels like there's no creative play calling where it's just like, all right, it's first down, let's hand it off up the middle. And then all of a sudden when you start mixing it up, it actually works. So that's the main thing that I want to see this year is just creative play calling, because it drives me crazy watching handoff on first down and then when you do a short pass on second down and then air it out on third down. Like it just feels really predictable to me. That's what drove me crazy for a while last year, but we kind of figured it out a bit more.
Oh, yeah, man. Me too. I mean, we probably had one of the most predictive like offenses in football. I was so happy when we fired our offensive coordinator. Like he was like a terrorist to the team. Like he just did not want to see us succeed. But yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do with Jacobs. We declined the 5th year. Sorry about that. We declined the 5th year. And, ever since we drafted Zamir White, I've called him the Josh Jacobs contingency plan. So we'll see what happens there. But I think all the backs are going to get, some pretty good snaps.
Yeah, I think in terms of talking about a predictable offense or a stale offense, if you want to go away from that, Josh McDaniels is a fantastic guy for that. And his scheme offensively is so interesting to me because it's very much based in like old school pro style smash mouth football. Like I said, the dude uses a fullback for Christ's sake and a non Shanahan-esque outside zone type of scheme. It's very much under center, 12 personnel, a lot of I-form type of situations or a lot of I-form play calls, but he also mixes in more modern concepts like spread, and he's willing to air the ball out if needed. It's very, very interesting to see how he's able to adjust on the fly and be able to do things. And I'm very, very excited to see what he's going to be able to do now that he has all of the weapons he has at his disposal, as well as a quarterback who can very much execute those type of offensive plays. And obviously, like I said, with Jacobs, it'll be interesting to see what he can do. And if Zamir White is the long-term option at running back, if this is the offense they're going to be running, I wouldn't be shocked. But I would hate to see that happen just because I think Jacobs is such a talented runner, and I would hate to see him just get passed to the side in favor of a rookie. But, it's modern-day NFL, and that's kind of what happens with running backs, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what the stat is offhand, but out of like Super Bowl winning teams and Super Bowl competing teams, the average salary of the RB1 is like $2 million or something. It's just that paying star running backs and relying on them is just not as prevalent in the NFL now as it once was.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the side effects of it, so to speak, like in Carolina with McCaffrey, all the money they gave him, and now he's barely on the field. And, there's with the way running backs are used nowadays, there's always that likelihood that that's going to be an issue just because of their how do I want to word this? You get what I'm saying. Like the point is it's bad to pay running backs nowadays, unfortunately. And the Raiders don't seem to be a team that's going to fall into that trap. So yeah, it'll definitely be interesting just as a whole to see what their offense is able to do, as well as what they're going to do with the running game going forward. But moving from there, let's talk about this draft class. Obviously, didn't pick until the third round. So we've already talked a little bit about Zamir White. How did you guys feel about this? I don't know. I don't know. How'd you feel about the draft class? I was going to try to make a joke about it, but I got nothing.
I was pretty happy with it, considering we didn't pick until the third round and we only had, we made like 6 picks, I think. I think we did pretty good. 2 running backs, 2 offensive linemen, 2 interior defensive linemen. All kind of positions of need. And I liked Dylan Parham and, Thayer Munford I thought was a good pickup. And then Matthew Butler and Neil Farrell Jr., pretty good players. Not mad about that at all.
Yeah, I think this year, in years past, the past few years, it's been really this was the ideal draft because we only had later round picks and none in the first 2 because we always screw up the first round pick.
Yeah, we had the first round pick messed up this year. It was nice.
And then later on, you pick guys like Max Crosby or whoever else late in the draft. So that's when we thrive, is those sort of like 4th, 5th, 6th round guys. But yeah, we filled all the right positions, and I'm big on Zamir White. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't somebody who was huge on Zamir White initially, but in going back and doing a little bit of research for these previews and whatnot, he really stood out to me, and that's when I kind of got the Damian Harris comparison, and how well he's going to fit in this offense. I don't think he's going to be somebody that gets a lot of touches this year just because of the 2 guys ahead of him. But next year, I think he's somebody that can really break onto he's somebody that can really break onto the scene. And then Dylan Parham obviously was a great pick. And you got 2 defensive linemen, adding a lot of thickness to that D-line, which is never a bad thing. I really like Neil Farrell's upside. I think he can be a long-term nose tackle for this team once Jonathan Hankins is kind of out of the picture. So like you guys said, for what it was, for the picks you guys had, I was definitely a fan of what you were able to pull together. And who's the GM at this point for the Raiders?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just blanked.
I know, I always suck at names. I know the guy, I just can't remember his name.
No, I totally blanked on his name because it's not Mayock anymore.
Dave Ziegler from New England.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because we're running the Patriots theme team.
Patriots West, man.
They do. They got a little Patriots team going on, and obviously we'll get into that more when we're talking about the offense and the defense and just kind of what they've got going on there. I will say, I love that I didn't know the name of the GM, but I know your assistant GM or one of your GM assistants is Marcel Reese, which is fantastic. Like one of my favorite fullbacks growing up. I read an article about him not too long ago that he's like a rising GM candidate in the NFL. So be on the lookout for him in the next couple of years to get a straight up job, which will be awesome. Like we're going to have fullbacks at GM now. That's great. But
bring the fullback back.
Exactly. That's the key. Marcel Reese is going to only scout fullbacks, and That's the true revival of the fullback position. Right
I mean,
there.
First GM to take a fullback in like the first round.
I'll put him in the Hoff right away. No hesitation. Get him his gold jacket right away.
I mean, the Raiders have got we've had some pretty good fullbacks. We were pretty good, historically, a pretty good fullback team. So,
oh, absolutely. Like I just said, Marcel Reese. Now you've got Jakob Johnson in the building, who I think is an absolute stud. Had a fantastic year for the Patriots last year. God, I'm blanking on names right now, but you had a couple dominant guys in like the 80s and 90s. You just love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. But moving from there, I guess we can kind of get into talking about the actual team, the roster, what they've got going on. And I think the best place to start here is to talk about Derek Carr, who I don't want to say is underrated because I don't like to use that term, but I think he's one of the more underappreciated quarterbacks in the NFL. So let's start there. How do you guys feel about Derek Carr being the leader of this team, especially after last season where he looked so impressive?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I'm expecting a season like 2016 when he was MVP running until he got injured towards the end there. And then we didn't have a QB in the playoffs, which was tragic. But I think I think that's the type of year we're going to see from Derek this year. And I mean, he's got great weapons, which is going to be awesome to see because he's kind of been deprived of weapons at different points throughout his career.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a career year. I think he'll, finally break 30 touchdowns for like the first time since 2015 or whatever it is. That'll be cool to see. I think, it's going to be a more efficient, big play offense. And, I'm really excited for it. I'm a big Derek Carr guy. I think he could be like a dark horse MVP this year. And so I'm really looking forward to the season that he can have.
God, if Derek Carr won MVP this year, I would be able to take the biggest fucking victory lap. I love Derek Carr so much. First of all, I just want to say I'm so sick of people grouping him in with guys like Kirk Cousins. He's not in that middle of the pack territory. He's a lot closer to the top 10 than he is like 15, in my opinion. He's just the definition of a guy that has that dog in him. Derek Carr's mentality and his aggressiveness that kind of showed up last year. That was one of my only issues with him, is that he seemed a bit timid as a passer, but he got that aggressiveness to him last year. The arm talent's there. The accuracy's there. He can read defenses very well. He can extend plays. He can throw off platform. I mean, he's the complete package at quarterback. I mean, sure, he doesn't have this like crazy otherworldly talent like a guy like Mahomes or Allen or Rodgers has, but there's a world where he looks better than guys like Stafford or Brady or Burrow or someone who isn't quite, in that conversation of having those insane generational traits, so to speak. So I think Carr MVP season incoming to anyone out there watching, primarily because of the weapons he has around him. And I do think that the steps he took last year are going to go a long way for him.
Well, I mean, if you look at last year, what he did and what he was able to lead the team to the playoffs in spite of all the Gruden stuff, the Ruggs stuff, Arnett. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible year off the field for the Raiders. And I think he's ultimately the reason we made the playoffs. I don't think there's many quarterbacks in the NFL that could guide a team through all of those adversities into the playoffs. Not just like playing well on the field, but also like the amount of times he had to get up at press conferences and like address some horrible controversy that happened and like explain what's going on somehow.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. See, I don't like to rank quarterbacks off of leadership because I feel like that's something you can't really evaluate from the outside looking in. But Derek Carr is so apparent as a leader. Like you said last year, everything he was able to help this team overcome and all the adversity they faced. And I was just able to play arguably some of the best football of his career in the face of that adversity. And like I said, take steps forward on tape at the very least. And it did show up in the stat sheet as well. He was like top 3, top 4 in passing for the majority of the season. I was super, super impressed by Derek Carr last year, and I'm surprised more people didn't come away with that realization. It's entirely disappointing, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this. I've got very, very high hopes for this year, but I definitely, not beyond just Derek. I think this whole Raiders team. I'm obviously biased as a Raiders fan, but I look at the team and I'm like, how could you hate these guys? Like, there's so many likable guys that you just want them to win. Like, you want this to be the year.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think this team deserves a win after everything they've been through, especially last year. I mean, you already listed everything that went down with them, and the moving from Oakland to Las Vegas, and people are kind of against that. Like this team deserves a damn win, and I really hope Derek Carr is the guy that's able to bring that to him this year. But moving on from the quarterback room, we can look at the running backs here, who we've kind of already touched on. It's a really, really good group, a group that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about. So what are your guys' thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, I think at different times when Josh Jacobs has had injuries, I mean, that's just what happens when you get injured is people forget about you. And so but whenever he's been in a groove, it's very apparent how talented he is. And I really like Kenyon Drake as well. I mean, he's a great RB2, and he's getting the contract needed to be sorted out a little bit because he was getting paid RB1 money to play RB2, but that got sorted out in the offseason. So I'm excited to see that. And also all these tons of other guys that have been brought in that I don't know who will actually get snaps or not, but I think those two are a pretty great backfield to have.
Yeah. I think the running back room, it's really well balanced. You have guys who can run in between the tackles, they can run outside of the tackles, they can run for power, they can break off big runs, they can pass catch out of the backfield. I think it's a really good group. I think we're going to see a lot of versatility from them this year, use them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think the beauty of this Raiders backfield, first of all, is that you're like 4 deep right now with Jacobs, Drake, White, and then Bolden, who I feel like was kind of an under the radar signing for you guys, but he looked like a borderline top 10 receiving back last year. He was absolutely incredible catching passes out of the backfield. He's an effective route runner, and he's not too bad between the tackles either. And obviously he's coming over with McDaniels, so that's a great signing. And then White, I've already talked about, great between the tackles, super powerful, fits the scheme very well. Drake's a fantastic third down back, receiving threat, takes a little bit of the pressure off Jacobs. And then you have Jacobs, who I don't know how to feel about. Like, the talent's there. I understand the hype around him, but also I feel like there's a little bit of inconsistency to his game. And also, I don't want to say he's got the injury bug quite yet, but he's, kind of up and down with that. But he's really, really good at reading the offensive line and finding holes. And he's got that, like, I don't want to say elite speed, but he's got great acceleration. And then he can use that to just absolutely run somebody over. Like, this is a fun backfield, and I think there's a lot of different things you can do about it. Like AJ said, it's going to be super versatile, and I think McDaniels is going to be able to have a field day with it.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the dream.
Yep. Well, moving on from there, we've got the receiver room obviously highlighted by Devante Adams. You've also got Hunter Renfrow, who I'm super excited to see in this system. You've got Darren Waller, who's a wide receiver in a tight end's body, and like a myriad of 4th, 5th, 6th receivers that can all come in and do a little bit of work. So how do you guys feel about this group?
I mean, I think you only have so many corners and safeties on the field, and you can't double team everyone. So you got to choose between D-Wall, Devante, Hunter. You can't double team all 3 of them. So I think somebody's going to be open. As long as there's good play calling, it's just perfect.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I love the depth that we have too, just beyond, the top 3 guys. Keelan Cole can play a role. Mac Hollins has been, a camp standout. So is Tyron Johnson. I think all those guys are going to find snaps this year, and I think they're going to be really productive when they do see the field. And then obviously it's going to be, impossible for defenses to stop Devante, Renfrow, and Waller at the same time. So it's going to be a really fun year.
Yeah. I mean, like we already said, you add the best receiver in football to a receiver core that was already kind of like a receiver away from being elite, which I don't know if you guys were hoping, but I'm sure most people were hoping that Henry Ruggs was going to turn into that guy before.
I was such a big Ruggs fan. He was like my second favorite player on the team. It was it just sucks what happened, man. Cause like, I can't like be a fan of the guy after he did that.
Right.
That was brutal, man. That was horrible.
And that rule was like, at the time, that's something I That's sort of why we why we brought in Djax after that, was to fill that kind of like deep threat role. But that was something where it's like to have somebody to get open deep, or at least stretch out the field to open stuff up for Derek, is so valuable. And so that was a huge bummer to lose that, because especially it was right when he was like kind of finding his groove a little bit too, which was really rough.
Yeah, well, on the bright side, even though what happened with Ruggs happened, you replaced him with Devante Adams, which I don't know. I'm just going to keep bringing it up in case any Packers fans are watching. I want to rub as much salt in the wound as possible. But you're looking at the best wide receiver in football, arguably the best route runner, arguably has the best release in football. He's great after the catch, and something I feel like not a lot of people are talking about is the fact that he's really, really improving in terms of being a ball dominant receiver. Kind of like that give me that bitch mentality when it comes to going up and just getting the ball over top of somebody. And then you go to Hunter Renfrow, who in my eyes is the best true slot receiver in football. And for anyone that says anything, I know Cooper Kupp's technically a slot, but he's not like a true slot. He does a little bit of everything.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp's a tight end.
Theo Ash calls him a fullback. Like he's everything. He's a little bit of everything out there.
He's got his own role.
He's just Cooper Kupp at the end of the day. But I think my favorite thing about Renfrow this year, I'm a big Renfrow guy. I just love little crafty, like, for lack of better words, he fits the white stereotype, where he's super hardworking, very gritty, first guy in, last guy out, got that dog in him type of player. But he's working with a guy who has worked with the two best examples of that in NFL history, in Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. So you have McDaniels working with like 3.0 version of Welker, so to speak. So I'm very excited to see what they'll be able to do. Waller speaks for himself. You can't stop the guy. He's too fast for linebackers and safeties to keep up, too fast for linebackers to keep up with, too big for corners to keep up with. Safeties are kind of in the middle with there. So I'm sure McDaniels is going to have a ton of fun with him. And then, like AJ said, the depth here is great. You've got Tyron Johnson, who's going to be like your pure burner. You've got Keelan Cole, who can do a little bit of everything. You've got Mac Hollins, who can, he's solid. Looks like he's doing well in camp. It's just a fantastic room. Like this, I know everyone wants to talk about like the Bengals and the Vikings and even the Broncos, some people, which I think that room's overrated. This is a room that is quietly one of the best in the NFL. I feel like it deserves a lot more credit than what it's currently getting, because from top to bottom, there's like no weaknesses here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've got guys, like Hunter Renfrow has been under I don't want to say underappreciated, because the people that appreciate him love Hunter. Like if you love Hunter Renfrow, then you really love Hunter Renfrow. Mm-hmm. But there's also people that that he's just like the like Cooper Kupp light, or he's just like the not as good version or whatever. But I mean, I love Hunter, and he's incredible. He's so much fun to watch too. Last year we had him on our podcast, and asked him like, when you catch a ball and you're running, what's going through your head? And he said, honestly, don't get hit, nothing. It's not, he's just like, it's legit just like playground of football. He's until he's open, catches the ball, and then is trying to get the first down and not die.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I love Renfrow. He's got his role and he plays it almost to perfection. So I'm really excited. I think he can get even better this next year.
Yeah.
I think that's 100%. This team is not just it's not even just an eclectic, you took a bunch of talent and threw it all on a football roster. It's very much everybody has a role. When you look at it, you're like, okay, these people should work really well together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I'm definitely really excited. I think Hunter Renfrow is probably the player I'm most excited to watch on this team, just because of the McDaniels connection. Like I said, I'm really, really excited to see what he's going to be able to do with them. But this is a weird transition. But speaking of kind of sneaky good white boys, we've got Fabian Moreau here. Or I'm sorry, not Fabian Moreau. Good Lord. Foster Moreau here at tight end, who I think is another guy that doesn't quite get the recognition he deserves. I think he's better than a lot of the starting tight ends out there right now, mainly because we're in a weird period in NFL history where outside of the top, 7, 8, maybe 9 guys, all of the tight ends in the league are kind of mediocre. So Moreau is a guy that I legitimately think could go and get a starting job somewhere, but having him as your number 2 behind Waller is absolutely incredible for this team. And he, kind of makes up for the blocking that Waller doesn't have, being a converted receiver. So if you guys want to add any thoughts there, I'm sure you probably feel the same way I do about him.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, my bad. Yeah, I love Foster, man. He's a good player. He could probably start on like half the teams in the league. There's like 10 good tight ends. But yeah, I'm really excited for when we run, 2 tight end sets. You don't have to worry about some bum being out there on the field. He's a good player. He's, pretty much proven at this point that he's good in the snaps that he's gotten.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's exactly what you guys said. I think on a lot of teams, he's tight end 1. And when D-Wall was down and he was playing more snaps, he was doing a great job filling in, and then also coming in and complimenting him. I mean, my Madden playbook, the way I play Madden is with a lot of tight ends. So I have so I like to see a good tight end too. So I could run multiple tight end sets and have them all cooking out there.
Hey, listen, there is nothing better than an offense with a pair of good tight ends, especially when they have a fullback coming up behind them. Like, the fact that this is a team with
big dudes on the field.
Yeah, just big dudes all across the board. It's got that old school feel with McDaniels offense, like we talked about earlier. I love everything about this Raiders offense. Well, almost everything. Let me rephrase that. I really don't like what they have going on up front on the offensive line, if I'm going to be totally honest. But everything other than that line is like perfection. So I guess that's a good transition. We can talk about the offensive line, because outside of Colton Miller, there's nobody here that really stands out, which is unfortunate for Colton because he's like proved himself to be a top 10 left tackle in the NFL at this point. The dude's an absolute monster. But other 4 guys, it's kind of iffy. So I guess the next question is, how do you guys feel about this offensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I love Colton Miller. I think it's clear that he's the one they want to build the line around. And initially, people were a bit more critical of him, like, oh, he's not that guy, but he's found his role well, and he's certainly the most reliable piece of that offensive line. But offensive line's been a little bit of a struggle for a while. I mean, there's a reason that Derek has one of the fastest release times in the league, and it's not just because he wants to get the ball out quick. It's because he has to get the ball out quick, which is not what you want. But yeah, I mean, there are some question marks. Alex Leatherwood, I would love to work out. I would love for him to be great, but that draft pick hurt a little bit to watch happen, and I'm waiting for it to turn out and age well, but we'll see.
Yeah, obviously Colton Miller's a stud, franchise left tackle. But I think Andre James at center, he's all right. He struggled a little bit at first, but, he got his footing down. It was like his first year starting. So, over the course of the year, I think he got better, really settled in. But yeah, the other 3 positions are, pretty rough. I would say that I'm like cautiously optimistic for, Leatherwood and some of the other guys. But yeah, looking at it right now, it's a pretty bad unit.
Yeah, the penalties are what killed me last year. A lot, way too many penalties.
Man. I swear, Jacobs had like 400 yards taken away just from penalties. It was brutal.
And always red zone yards too. It was always at like the wrong time too.
Just on the goal line, just holding like twice in a row. That was brutal.
Yeah, I agree with Andre James. I like him. I like what I've seen out of him. He was a guy, if I'm not mistaken, was like a Gruden project, and one that actually managed to pan out. I think he's a very solid starting center. I like his work ethic a lot, and he seems like he's very stable. He's been growing as a run blocker. But then you look at the other 3 guys on the line. Leatherwood, obviously, you want to see anything from him at this point. Like, there are plays where he's a borderline liability out there. He's a horrid pass protector. He's all right as a run protector, but like, he just doesn't look like there's anything there. And then you got John Simpson starting on the other side. He's fine. He's nothing great, but he's a serviceable Band-Aid, so to speak. And then Brandon Parker, I don't know what the hell to think about him. I couldn't find enough to watch on him, so I couldn't really form an opinion. Maybe I'm missing out on something there, but I have a strong feeling that I'm not, unfortunately. But But hope maybe Dylan Parham can come in and be the saving grace of this offensive line, take over for Leatherwood, start at guard, or hell, maybe even play him at center, move Andre James out to guard. Like there's a little bit of something you can maybe do with this offensive line, but as of right now, it projects to be one of the worst in the league, I would say, even with Colton Miller being as good as he is.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting what you said about like the whatever you said about like Gruden projects.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's sort of been I mean that is the reality. Is there are guys on the team that were brought in that Gruden thought he could shape into something and like could work well together, and this is something he wanted to run and like had a vision for it. But then when you have all these coaching changes and a new system, it's a little rough to be like, okay, well, like to figure out, okay, what was he trying to do here? Like, what was the plan here? So hopefully that gets sorted out and kind of figured out going forward. But I mean, that's the problem with having a revolving door of coaching systems, but
especially when one of those coaching systems is Gruden, because nobody knows what's going on in that man's head other than himself. So there really is no way to come into this job and know right away what you're picking up and what you're inheriting. You really got to be able to piece it together and figure things out. And I don't know, maybe there's a world where this team goes out and they make a trade. Unfortunately, the Bears have made Tevin Jenkins available. Maybe you can work something out there and try him over Brandon Parker, or I don't know what's left in free agency, or maybe there's a guy available somewhere else. But I don't, at least for this year, I don't have super high hopes for this offensive line. But like you said, Noah, Derek Carr is very, very good at getting the ball out very quickly. So maybe it's not going to be as big of a deal as it seems to be on paper. And I'm going to bring it up again just because I can. There is a fullback in this offense now that you can keep in and really, help pick up the slack for these linemen. Obviously, it doesn't make up for it, but just having a guy back there with Carr or in front of Jacobs or Drake or whoever's running the ball, it can help a good bit, especially when you have rough offensive lines. So I don't know. Like I said, this is probably the biggest issue on this entire team, in my opinion, and it might not even end up being that bad of a thing, depending on how they can scheme around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I don't know. In my opinion, it's not awful. I think we've seen worse offensive lines, but yeah, it's not great. I think, or my hope is that the McDaniels system is one that moves quickly enough that it's not noticeably like that. We don't need Derek to be sitting in the pocket for 4 or 5 seconds every play, to where to where there's enough going on that it's not glaringly an issue is the hope.
Right. Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope that we can be a slightly below average unit and not, bottom 3. But, even if the pass blocking doesn't hold up, I mean, all 3 of the receivers can work the short game at an elite level. Carr can get the ball out quick. I think we'll be all right no matter what, but would love to see Carr not be like the most pressured quarterback in the league again.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there definitely is a world where you can mask this offensive line and make up for how weak it is on paper, especially with a guy like McDaniels and a quarterback like Carr. It's not going to be the hardest thing in the world to do, but like AJ said, you want to hope that this line can play above what it is on paper. But I think that kind of wraps up the offense, unless there was anybody we didn't talk about. I think we're good to move on and talk about the defense, which is an interesting unit, I would say. The front 4 is going to be fun. I mean, obviously you have Crosby and you have Chandler Jones and then the guys behind them. The front 4 is going to be a ton of fun, especially those edge rushers. So I guess that's where we'll start. If you guys want to go ahead and start talking about the front 4.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that you've just got dominant guys all around there. And yeah, I mean, we've already talked about it a bit, but I'm just excited in action and see what they can do, because I think it's really it's going to be one of the best defensive lines in football, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think the entire front 7 really is a strength of the team. Maybe not so much on the interior, but edge is great. Then I like our linebackers. I'm a big Divine Diablo fan. I'm really hoping that he can break out this year. he's got way too cool of a name to just be some bad player. Like, but yeah, him and Perriman, Jayon Brown, I think that's, fine at linebacker. Crosby, of course, and Chandler Jones is going to be better than Yannick Ngakoue. Hopefully he can defend the run a little bit.
Yeah, I agree completely. Obviously, Crosby had, 100 pressures last year or something absolutely absurd. Dude had one of the best seasons out of any defensive lineman in football. He was absolutely incredible. And Chandler Jones, his season was weird because he started out with that 5-sack performance and kind of fell off a little bit and then came back into his own towards the end of the year. So something I think that's going to help him a lot is the fact that this edge group, I'm not going to say it's super deep, but you have guys that can step up and rotate in and really let him get off the field and take some breaks because he is getting up there in age. And when you have these older pass rushers, you can't rely on them to be 3-down guys. You got to, kind of pick and choose when you're going to play them. So if Jones needs to come off every once in a while, Clelin Ferrell can really step in and be a nice reliever for him. And how I could even see a world where Ferrell, puts on 20 pounds and plays on the interior of the defensive line because kind of like AJ said, that group, it isn't quite as good as the edge group, but there's something there for sure. And then you have is it Kuntz? Is that how you say Malcolm? Is it Malcolm Kuntz or Malcolm Kuntz?
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's Kuntz.
Okay.
Kuntz, yeah.
Either way, I really like what I've seen out of him. I think he's a super versatile guy. You've got the quickness. He showed a lot of flashes. He fits this defense very well, and he's somebody that's a little bit versatile. He can drop into coverage. So this edge group is really nice. And then you move inside, and Hankins is just kind of your stereotypical nose tackle. And Bilal Nichols, obviously coming over from my Bears, somebody I wish Chicago would have tried harder to retain. I really like what I've seen out of him. I will say he did have a bit of a down year last year, but he's a solid defensive tackle. So I don't think there's any issues with this front four whatsoever, especially if Chandler Jones can be a little bit more consistent than he was last year, which is kind of my only concern for him. But other than that, it's Chandler Jones, so not really too much there. And then like AJ said, the linebacking core is great. Denzel Perriman, I got a little bit of shit for him on TikTok the other day because I hadn't watched him in a while, and I called him mid when I was going through the Raiders camp photos when they were I forget what it was for, media day. That's what it was. It was for their media day.
And the lightsabers?
Yeah. I was like, this is such a badass picture for such a mid linebacker. And every Raiders fan in my comments let me know I was a dumbass. And I went back and looked, and I was a dumbass. Perryman is a lot better than I thought he was, a lot better than I gave him credit for. And then Divine Diablo, like AJ said, you can't have that cool of a name and not be a badass. And I think I saw somebody the other day on Twitter, I can't remember for the life of me who it was, describe him as an agent of chaos, which I thought was the greatest thing in the world, because it's true. I mean, when you're that athletic at that position and you can do a little bit of everything, you definitely are. And then Jayon Brown was a fantastic pickup in free agency. I think he's probably not going to be the starter here, which would make him like the best third linebacker in the NFL. So since me and AJ gave our thoughts, Noah, how do you feel about this linebacker core?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, Denzel Perriman is far above mid. I think he, I think he led the league in tackles last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love Denzel. I think he's just and it's great that he's one that kind of came. He wasn't certainly leading the league in tackles before he came to the Raiders, and over this past year, I mean, he had one of the best years of his season, which was great to see. And I mean, he brings a veteran presence to that defense to hopefully help out some of the younger guys like Jonathan Abram, Nate Hobbs, other guys, obviously different positions. But yeah, I love him. And I mean, Divine Diablo has no choice but to be a future Hall of Famer, or to be a Hall of Famer with the name Diablo. Like it's just perfect. It's to see on a jersey the word Diablo is incredible.
It's hard, man. He's too good of a name. He's going to be really good this year.
I think the fun thing about Diablo too is their defensive coordinator coming over, Patrick Graham, obviously was with New York most recently, and the work he did with Jabril Peppers, I think, could be done with Divine Diablo, because he's a converted safety. We're talking about a dude that's super quick. He's a good downhill tackler. I mean, you could hypothetically drop him back into coverage as a safety if needed, because and we can talk about him in a minute, but I'm not a huge fan of Jonathan Abram. So if that's something you want to experiment with a little bit, I think that's definitely within the realm of possibility. And if Divine Diablo becomes like Micah Parsons, but instead of rushing the passer, he's out there playing in the deep third, I think that would be one of the coolest things ever. And it's, like I said, it's definitely within the realm of possibility for this guy. And I think the fact that his name is Diablo, like you guys have said, just makes it 10 times better. He's so sick.
Yeah, no, definitely.
All right, so I guess from there we can just talk about the secondary. This is a group that I've seen a lot of people give the Raiders a lot of shit for. Anytime I've said that I think the Raiders are a playoff team or I think the Raiders are going to be any good, this is always the counter to it. Well, what about the secondary? So from a Raiders fan perspective, how do you feel about this group since it seems to be so polarizing among every other NFL fan base?
I mean, the stats don't lie. We gave up a lot of points last year. It seemed like every game was a shootout. I mean, we had to score a lot of points to win the games that we won. That being said, I think there's a lot of players that that are really good. I'm really excited to watch play for another season. Nate Hobbs, I think, is I'm expecting him to have a great season. I mean, his rookie year, it's clear that he was a massive steal in that draft. I'm super huge on him. Then you've got other guys like Jonathan Abram was obviously he's injured last year for a big portion of the year, so didn't get to see him quite as much. But yeah, I mean, I think there's pieces to give a lot of hope to be optimistic about. Like Trayvon Mullen, Morig. I'm optimistic, but yeah, it's definitely been a weak point in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the guys have like, potential and upside, but there's a lot more questions in the secondary than sure things right now. But I think Patrick Graham coming over, I think he's going to do really good work with Trayvon Mullen and Rocky Sin. He got like a really good year out of Adoree Jackson last year, who was not very good in Tennessee. So I'm expecting, I'm not expecting like elite play, but I mean, we have our slot corner, we have our outside corners, and we have a safety in Trayvon Merrick, who I think is going to be really good. Just got to figure out that other safety position. Abram just is not it. I can't stand to see him take any more snaps out there. I mean, it's cool when he makes one of those like occasional tackles every 4 games that are big, but just on a down-to-down basis, he's just not very good, unfortunately.
Okay, it's good to know that I'm not crazy in my assessment of Abrams because me and AJ are on the same exact playing field here. I really do not think Abrams is any good. Like, yeah, I get the excitement for him, what like AJ said, when he goes out, makes a big tackle and gets everybody pumped up. I get that. But as your starting strong safety, I feel like you need somebody that's a lot better than that. Like if Abrams was your third safety and he saw, snaps on obvious rushing downs and things like that, sure. I would be perfectly fine with it. But he's like, I would say a straight up liability in coverage at this point, and he's very
definitely
undisciplined out there. He doesn't have good instincts. He's not fluid. He doesn't have good range, even though he has good straight line speed. He can't read quarterbacks very well. I just really don't like what I've seen out of him. So if they can get another guy back there by Trayvon Merrick, who I think is an absolute stud, like I said, they can kind of experiment with Divine Diablo, maybe drop him back there because, in today's NFL, people don't care about linebackers anymore. Maybe it would be a little bit more valuable to have Diablo be some sort of, I don't want to quite say a star, but some sort of moving piece that can do a little bit of everything. And then obviously Nate Hobbs looked fantastic last year. Trayvon Mullen, he's coming off a big injury, but I do think Patrick Graham will be able to do wonders for him. And then Rocky Sin, however the hell you say this man's name, like I said at the very beginning, I don't know a whole lot about him, but from what I have seen, he seems very up and down, and I think Graham, again, should be able to do work with him and turn him into at least a viable corner too.
Yeah, I think that I like Jonathan Abram. I think he's inconsistent. I think it'd be a mistake to give up on him just because I think he has displayed that he has a lot of athletic talent. Usually that we see that in like the occasional big hit or whatever when he's not injuring himself or another teammate with those big hits. But I think that hopefully, since he's young, I would like to think that he can develop a more well-rounded skill set, because he's not at a point where you can depend on him down after down. I actually have. I'm open to wanting to convert him over to playing at linebacker and see. I think he almost could be more successful as a converted linebacker than at strong safety, just because it's relies less on him going into deep coverage. But I don't know. That's something that it's just kind of something that'd be interesting to see.
I honestly, if they tried that and he worked out, I wouldn't hate to see them try Diablo at safety. If they wanted to flip the two of them,
just flip the two positions.
Move Diablo back to safety, play Abram up in the box, and maybe make him like your third linebacker, make Jayon Brown a starter. That honestly might be like their best option right now. I mean, obviously we're not NFL coaches; they know a lot more than we do. I would hope at least, but I mean, I definitely could see a world where that happens, and I think that could be very fruitful for the Raiders if they want. I mean, at least play around with it,
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I assume the coaches know something. That I assume it's not as easy as swapping them, or else they would have done it by now. But I do like Abram more as he's closer to the line of scrimmage. It's when a receiver goes back and he's tracking them back deep, that's when it starts to really not have as good of an outcome. But I like him up close playing physical football a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks the guy can't play coverage, but we've got Daron Harmon on the roster, and he can play coverage. So I would rather see him out there with Merrick, for running like two deep safeties or whatever. I'd like to see him out there more than Abram. But yeah, playing Abram like close to the line of scrimmage on like rundowns or whatever, I think that could be something that we experiment with. Doing him in the him and Diablo switch, maybe we see that in preseason. But there's a lot of different things that they can do with the personnel that we have.
Yeah. It's good that AJ brought up Harmon, because I was actually about to do that. I like the idea of Harmon taking over for Abram here and Abram becoming like their third safety, just because I think Harmon in coverage is the more complete player. Like, he's not a superstar or anything, but like I said, I would say Abram's a liability back there right now. And Harmon, he's somewhat familiar with this system because Graham does have a lot of that Belichick influence. He worked under Belichick for a long time. And Graham's system's actually very complex and very interesting. I couldn't do it justice trying to explain it right here because I'm no defensive mastermind. But like, if you haven't already, do yourself a favor and go look at how that man's defense works, because he's worked under so many different people and found a way to incorporate his influence from all of them into this crazy, weird hybrid defense that has a lot of moving parts. It's almost like the chess game of defenses, so to speak. It's really impressive. But yeah, I would definitely like to see them do a little bit more with Harmon than Abram. And I get the upside with Abram. I get the athletic traits and the fact that he's young. But at a certain point, you got to cut it loose. And I don't know. I just really have not been impressed with what I've seen out of Abram so far. But,
I think that's sort of one of the reasons why he's. I mean, like you said, that he has. He's got upside. He's young. Obviously, Harmon is more of a veteran. But if this is the year that we think we can win it all, then you do what you can to win it this year.
Right.
So whether that's playing a veteran who's been in the league for a long time over somebody that you're holding out hope for, just comes down to that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, forget upside. Just get the best 11 out there, and let's win some games.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say you guys don't really have the luxury that a team like my Chicago Bears would have, in the sense that you can experiment and see what you have in certain players because you don't have to worry about winning games. You guys are trying to compete in the hardest division in all of football.
That's a great optimistic perspective to have on the Chicago Bears situation. Not have the luxury of winning games, or to have the luxury of not having to worry about winning games.
I mean, you gotta, at a certain point, I've been a fan of this team for over a decade. At a certain point, you gotta take what they give you, you know? Like I dealt with, what was it, 5 years of Matt Nagy, 8 years of Ryan Pace or whatever. There's new guys in the building. We have a quarterback that looks promising. I'm just excited to watch football at this point. I don't give a shit who wins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole rooting for a winning football team is fairly new to me as well. So
yeah, I got a taste of that in 2018, and we all know how that ended, unfortunately. So, I don't know, from one salty fan to another, enjoy it while you can. That being said, how do you guys think the team's going to perform this year? Obviously, I've mentioned already the working in the hardest division in all of football and the hardest conference in all of football. It's definitely going to be a bloodbath every single week. But do you guys think you'll be able to find your way into the playoffs and potentially make some noise?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we're consistently disrespected by people predicting the divisional rankings or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a team full of competitors, and we've competed with less talent before. So I think I think we're going to be highly competitive this year within the division. I also don't think. People act like it's like the division is locked up by the Chiefs and everybody else is competing for wild card spots. I don't think that's the case, to be honest. I think the Chiefs are. I think the throne is up for the taking. Obviously, they're the favorites, but I think it's not out of the question to win the division.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to be, better than people are, predicting us to be. Like I see us, pretty commonly at the bottom of the division. Sorry. In that, third or fourth spot, whatever it is, not making the playoffs. I think we're going to make it this year. I did my, my full prediction on them. I think we're going to go like 11-6 and be pretty competitive in every game. So I'm looking forward to this year. This is like the first year in a long time that I'm actually like looking forward to the Raiders and have, an optimistic view of them.
I think one of the things it's going to come down to is, since our division is going to be such a dogfight where every divisional matchup matters so much, we need to win. We need to win the like gimme games, because last year we lost to the Giants and we got blown out by the Falcons. Like the games that are like easy wins, we need to win those, because it makes it a lot tougher to win the division when you don't win the free wins, basically.
Yeah, I mean, we lost to the Giants and the Bears and the football team last year. Like,
you guys did lose to us, didn't you?
We compete with great teams, and then it's sort of I guess it's a matter of like rising to your competition, but also kind of falling to the level of your competition. But
yeah, we played down to our competition last year, and then we just got beat. It was brutal to watch that unfold.
Yeah, I completely forgot the Bears beat the Raiders last year. That's only how you say end up winning. Yeah, I mean, one of them, that's for sure. Now, the highlight of our season was almost beating Pittsburgh until the refs decided to take that away from us. But yeah, I agree. I think the Raiders are a team that I'm not going to say slept on, because I think everyone will acknowledge that it's a good football team, but they definitely have a much higher chance of making noise than people want to pretend. I definitely don't think there's any world where they finish fourth in the division, just because I'm not very high on Denver whatsoever. Like, I get it, they added Russell Wilson, but otherwise it's kind of a middle of the pack team. Whereas I would say the Raiders, Chargers, and Chiefs are all like solidified contending rosters. So it's going to be interesting for sure to see how that division pans out. I personally have them finishing third, but it's, still good enough for a playoff spot. And once you get to the playoffs, everybody's even again. There's no advantages other than, I guess, the one seed getting home field. And I agree with what Noah said in the sense that it's not necessarily the Chiefs' division to hold on to. It's not their division to win. It's theirs to lose, or not theirs to lose, I guess. There's definitely a world where they can be dethroned. So I definitely think it'll be really, really interesting to see how it all pans out. And I think the Raiders having the heart and, for lack of better words, like the grit and the toughness to really keep up with these teams, whereas teams like the Chiefs are kind of used to just walking through people. The Raiders know what it's like to be the underdogs. They know what it's like to have to fight from the bottom, so maybe that'll play into their advantage a little bit, and Derek Carr can do a little bit of what he did last year.
Yeah, division's definitely, up for grabs,
Mhm.
in a way for the first time in years. And I mean, I don't know if we're going to rise to the occasion and take advantage and, win the division, but I could definitely see a world where we do.
Yeah, I think that like what you were saying about how that we're motivated. I think that that's something that people, because Derek is very clearly a great guy, um, people don't necessarily realize that he's also like extremely competitive and absolutely has like he hates losing. And I think it's very clear that he's highly motivated and playing with. I think he'll play with a chip on his shoulder this season.
Yeah, like I said, Derek Carr MVP season incoming. I am going to start pushing this agenda. I want it to happen so bad. Not just because I want it so bad. Like even as like obviously I'm not rooting for the Bears to do much this year, so I need somebody to root for, and it's going to be Derek Carr this year. Because first of all, I want him to make Rodgers look like a jackass for trying to play off of the Devante Adams comment where he was like, it's going from one Hall of Famer to another. He made the same comment about Alan Lazard. I want Rodgers to look like a jackass for that comment. And I want anyone who doubts Derek Carr or calls me wild for saying he's on a tier above guys like Kirk Cousins to look like absolute idiots, because he is. Derek Carr is, like I said, I don't like to use the word underrated, but he's the most underappreciated quarterback in the league. I cannot stand the disrespect that man gets. And I'm not even a Raiders fan.
I think MVP is not out of the question when Derek passed for, I think he finished like 5th most in yards last season with who was our wide receiver 1? Brian Edwards. I mean, Hunter was the wide receiver 1, but he's a slot guy, so it's different. Right. Like he's not really the wide receiver 1, even if he is. But I mean, and now you have Devante Adams as your wide receiver 1. He's a little bit better than Brian Edwards. So
yeah.
And we're going from Zay Jones on the outside to Devante Adams. I think we can expect some pretty good things.
Not to mention a competent offensive play caller and a new system that's going to be very favorable for Derek. And you're going to have Darren Waller back healthy. Everything is in this man's favor. And another thing that's going to be in his favor is if he can put up the numbers and he can put up the wins. Everyone likes to look at the MVP narratives. Well, taking the Raiders to I don't know, the first team in the AFC West or winning that division or like a top 3 seed in the AFC, narratives would definitely be in his favor in that regard.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I really hope this system works out, because that's one of the reasons that when we're deciding on a head coach, I didn't want Harbaugh, but I was not opposed to just keeping Rich Bisaccia as our head coach, because Derek has been through so many different systems over the course of his career. I don't know exactly how many head coaches he's had or like offensive systems, offensive coordinators, but it's been a lot. So I'm hoping that this one works rather than just another one that's here for a year or half a year and then it's gone.
Yeah. I was a big fan of Mike McDaniel from San Francisco. I wanted him. He made Jimmy G into a winner, and Jimmy G sucks. So seeing what he could do with someone like Derek Carr and, this roster would be exciting. But yeah, I said earlier, I've warmed up to Josh McDaniels. I think he's going to be fine, and hopefully he just works out for, however long he can be our long-term coach.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, you got a coach coming from a winning pedigree under Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick doesn't just hire guys to hire guys. He only keeps around the best of the best. And McDaniels has been working under him for over a decade now, or however the hell long it's been. And it's not like we're talking about Matt Patricia, who's just kind of like, playing off of Belichick. This is the guy who has run Belichick's offenses for years and years and years. And now that he has a quarterback that is not Tim Tebow, I'm very, very confident that he'll be able to get something done. And I really think Derek Carr, like I said, I think he's going to have an incredible season. And I think if McDaniels sticks around, McDaniels, if he sticks around, then sky's the limit for the Raiders long term.
It's only 4 words you need: Derek Carr MVP season.
Exactly.
I don't know if MVP is one word. It could be.
Yeah, it's close enough.
We'll call it one word.
Yeah. For the sake of narratives, we'll call it one word.
Absolutely.
4 words for number 4. That's perfect. I don't know if that was intentional, but maybe it was, and it just registered with me late. But there you go.
I'll say it was intentional, but it was not.
All right. Well, real quick, just out of curiosity, how do you guys feel about Rich Bisaccia being gone? Noah obviously brought him up, and I was a big fan of what I saw out of him last year.
He seems. I like Rich a lot. He seems like, I mean, he just, watching him on TV, he looks like he gives off like really good guy vibes. I think that Derek was doing a lot of that Derek was running the offense for it to like I don't want to downplay Rich Bisaccia, but I think Rich Bisaccia became head coach, and that meant that Derek had a lot of I don't know how you say it, that he had a lot of freedom to kind of do what he wanted with the offense, if that makes sense. So I think it was sort of they were head coaching together, which is my perception from looking from outside.
Yeah, Bisaccia was a great guy, and he stepped up when we really needed someone. We needed an adult in the room, and he was that guy for us. But I didn't really want to bring him back as the head coach. I wanted like a legit head coach, who's been a coordinator for offense or defense, whatever it is. I mean, it sucks that he, didn't come back as our special teams coordinator and went up to Green Bay, I think. But, yeah.
Yeah. There was I'm with Noah. I liked what I saw at Bisaccia, but his influence obviously can only go so far. Like, I can't imagine he had much say in what was going on with the offense, but he was a good hype man, and that's kind of what that team needed. And obviously he's a good special teams coordinator. Your special teams are usually pretty good. So there were rumors that he was going to go to Chicago, and I remember being very excited about that. And he ended up in fucking Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, it's I guess at the end of the day, we're talking about a special teams coordinator, so it can't be that big of a loss.
Yeah, but I think he did a lot of it for. I mean, there's very few like worse situations that somebody has ever become a head coach in. You know what I mean? Like that's a pretty not great situation to be starting your head coaching career, and he took us to the playoffs, so he deserves a lot of credit for that, I think.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I can get behind that 100%. Well, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about, any players we skipped over, any, I don't know, departures. We completely skipped over the guys who left, I feel like, but I don't think any of them were too notable other than Ngakoue, and we touched on him with the Yasin trade. So unless there's anything we didn't go over, I think we're about done here.
I mean, Casey Hayward left for Atlanta, and he was really, really good last year. They only gave him like 2 years, $12 million. I was like really pissed when I saw that contract. I was like, dude, you could have just stayed, man. I'd be a lot more happy about our secondary if we had him, but I think that was like our only like big time notable loss.
Aren't you a big fullback guy? And you're gonna say we didn't lose anybody?
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Ingold!
Oh my god! Dude, I almost fell to my floor when you said that. Oh my god, I can't believe I said that. Yeah. Ingold's gone. You downgraded at fullback, but you still have a hell of a fullback. So I guess it's not too big of a loss.
That injury was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking. I loved Alex. I was so sad.
Much.
Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. I've been pushing Ingold narratives all off season too. I'm a huge Ingold fan. Like, I made a video a couple of months ago saying that I think there's an argument he's like a top 3 fullback over a guy like CJ Ham, and me and Nico Elite Takes go back and forth about him all the time. I love Alec Ingold, dude. How did I forget that? Oh my god. Yeah.
I can't believe it. I was waiting for you to bring him up.
Yeah, see, I mean, like I said, though, you're going from a top 4 fullback to a top 10 fullback, so it's not too big of a loss. But I will say Johnson definitely does not bring the after the catch ability or the receiving ability that Ingold brought to the table, unfortunately. But I would say he's probably a better run blocker, and that's probably going to be the majority of what he's doing for this team anyways. So maybe Johnson fits a little bit better for what you're doing, and Ingold fits a lot better for what they're going to be doing down in Miami.
But the run blocking doesn't make the highlight tapes like those sick hurdles do, though. So
they make my highlight tapes. Okay, listen, I have had so many people this offseason ask me to break down fullback tape, and I'm going to have to do it once the season starts. And I'm just trying to think how I can make blocks exciting. That's been my whole thing. Just like, obviously I'm going to have to yell and say, like, he blew that motherfucker up, like say stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's blocking. You can only say so much about it, unfortunately. But yeah, Ingold is a hurdler. Some of the sickest fullback highlights of the past decade. I love Alec Ingold.
Yeah, he will be missed. He didn't, unfortunately, didn't play most of the season, so we'll probably be all right. But he was still the heart and soul of the team, I guess.
Team captain.
Yeah. That I'm gonna blame that on the reason why I wasn't thinking about him, just because he was hurt last year and didn't play very much. I'm just gonna pretend that was the reason, and not because I'm a complete idiot. Listen, okay, in my defense, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I pulled a muscle in my back, and the only thing that's been on my mind all day is pain and agony and falling around. So it cut me a little bit of slack. I deserve a little bit of slack today. Like Noah said before we started recording, this is my flu game. This is my MJ moment. But yeah, other than me completely flubbing on Ingold and Casey Hayward, who I forgot left as well, I'm 0 for 2 on that. Is there anyone else that I'm forgetting about that you guys want to make me look like an idiot for forgetting about?
And Carl Nassib was probably the next biggest one.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's as a bench defensive end, incredible.
Yeah. I can't believe he doesn't have a job right now. That's absolutely insane to me.
Does he not?
Yeah, I mean, at least as far as I'm aware. Maybe
No,
he
I
got
don't think he's
signed
been
recently.
picked up yet, but I mean, as training camp continues going on, people are going to get hurt. So I'm pretty sure he'll get a contract here pretty soon to fill in for an injury, at least.
I hope he gets a job, man. He deserves it.
Rotational guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah, and I think I don't want to get too into off the field stuff, but I think there's probably a good reason why he doesn't have a job right now, because like Noah said, he's a good rotational defensive end, and there's plenty of teams that could use a good rotational defensive end. So I really hope he does get a job somewhere and he doesn't get blackballed for, things he can't necessarily control, but is pretty brave for coming out about.
Yeah, no, love Carl Nassib, always will. Great guy.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'm 0 for 3, so I'm not going to open up the floor to you guys giving me anyone else to be wrong about. But I will open up the floor for you guys to plug anything you might want to plug. I know you did at the very beginning, but it doesn't hurt to do it multiple times, because why not? So if you want to plug your TikTok, podcast, YouTube, Twitter, anything like that, go for it.
Sure. We are, I co-host the HarvesterSports podcast, HarvesterSports on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel, and HarvesterSports on all your social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. We'll hop on MySpace soon, so you could connect with us there.
Yeah, AJ the Ball Knower, one word on TikTok, run it up, dropping the AFC West predictions, in the next couple of days, so that'll be exciting. Yeah.
All right, and I'll make sure to have these guys' links in the description, as well as our links are always in the description down below. AJ, I will say I'm going to make you change your name if you don't push a fullback agenda here very, very soon.
I will start pushing the most unreal Jakob Johnson.
Oh, beautiful, ever. Beautiful, awesome. I tried to do that with Kyle Juszczyk, and people got mad. I said he was like I said he was a top 20 most talented skill position player in the NFL or something like that, and people got really, really mad about that.
I'll put Juszczyk in my top 20 when I drop the list.
See, there you go. That is the mentality of a true ball knower right there.
On a list, if you were doing a list of like every position, top 100 players in the NFL, how high do you think you could put him and people would take you seriously enough to where they wouldn't think you were joking?
Oh my God. I mean, just
like
because
80?
I was going to say you can't go very high. Now, if Juszczyk was a tight end, which is what he played coming out of college, you could put him in the top 20 and people wouldn't bat an eye. But because the FB is listed next to his name, he gets a little bit oppressed, so to speak. I don't want to use that word because that's used for much more serious things. He gets disrespected, we'll put it that way. It's the unfortunate truth of a fullback. They're not quite what they once were, even though people like to forget arguably the greatest player in NFL history was, in fact, a fullback. So it's It's very unfortunate. Yeah, everyone tries to.
Alec Ingold.
Okay, top 2, because I was thinking more Jim Brown, but you're right. You're right.
Was he?
He was a fullback, but he was the team's lead runner, so he was a running back. He just wasn't a halfback. Yeah. You gotta get real technical with those terms to piss people off, because they'll sit and tell you that Jim Brown was a halfback, and you're like, no, he was a fullback and a running back. And then they get flustered, and it's all sorts of fun. I love fucking with people with fullbacks. It's so much fun, because people and then there's the people that try to pretend they know about fullbacks, and there's the other people that are like, this guy could say anything in the world and I will take it to heart because I have no idea what's going on. Like, I've been doing.
Did you play football, or did you play fullback, or is this just totally
No, okay.
Like, this is just a random obsession?
No, I played football for a year, and I played tackle and like offensive tackle and nose tackle. But my dad was a fullback in high school, and when I was little, my grandpa used to preach that he could have went pro if he would have kept his mind to it and all that kind of stuff. And they had old tapes, and one of my first experiences watching football was watching my dad's high school tapes. So because of that, I became a big fullback guy. And this past summer, when there was nothing to talk about on TikTok, I really dove deep into it. It just kind of became my thing. But that's what everyone thinks. Everyone thinks I played fullback, and unfortunately, I am too fat and non-athletic to play fullback. So that was not the case. But yeah, I think that'll about wrap it up for this episode. Like I said, make sure to check these guys out. I'll have their links down in the description below. And thank you guys so much for coming on. I know it was kind of inconvenient having to reschedule from the other day, but glad you guys stuck around and were able to come on. It means a lot. I really do appreciate it. And to everyone out there watching, make sure to let us know down in the comments below how you think the Raiders are going to do this season, whether you agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments down below. Yell at us for our takes if you want, whatever you want to do. Just make sure you leave a comment. And if you'd also leave a like, that would mean a lot. We put a lot of effort into these things. I'm having a ton of fun doing them, and any sort of support, good Lord, any sort of support goes a long way. And like I said, I am doing this on a pull muscle, so if you're not going to do it because you enjoyed the video, do it out of pity, please. I am begging you. And above all else, I hope everyone watching this, and of course you guys here with me as well, have a wonderful day, night, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope you enjoy it because you're all wonderful people.
And drop Derek Carr MVP season in the comments.
Raiders to the Super Bowl.